It's Laura here with MyVirtual.Lawyer and Legal Talk Tuesdays. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late today, but we, just like anybody, even though we're a virtual law firm, we had some technical difficulties. The platform that we use to stream this on Facebook wouldn't let me in. So even though I'm doing this solo today, Brooke had to actually let me in. So thank you to Brooke. She's on here monitoring basically so that I can come and talk to you guys today. So welcome. For those of you that are in Central Arkansas, you can see our lovely dreary day that we have here. It's, I'm sure, putting everyone in the best mood, and I'm trying really hard to keep my mood positive, even though it's dark and rainy outside. But the weather has changed, and so that's awesome. I enjoy the fall season kind of more than anything else. So with fall also comes Halloween, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about co-parenting during holidays. And that's one of the biggest things that not everybody thinks about when they're getting divorced, or they are divorced, or they have a kid with somebody, whether or not they were ever married, doesn't really matter, because you're still co-parenting with someone and trying to figure out what's best for the children, what's best for you. And co-parenting during the holidays can be kind of one of those things that is a difficult time unless you plan for it accordingly. So you got to plan. That's the biggest thing, is to know and make these plans ahead of time so that there's no like last minute emotional drama or anything like that when it comes to the holidays. We're going to talk about Halloween specifically here, but it applies to kind of any holiday. Halloween is coming up in just a couple weeks, which is crazy to me that we're already halfway through October. But Halloween happens to be a favorite of Brooke, my partner. And so that's kind of a big deal. If you have, favorite holidays, if you, both of you love Christmas, whatever it might be, you need to make sure that you have that plan in place so that your co-parenting is as seamless as possible, and your child or children get to spend as much time with each parent as is appropriate and possible. So keep that in mind. Holidays are family time for people, but family means different things when you're divorced or when you're co-parenting with someone that you're no longer or never been married to. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about today, because they're important when you're talking about holiday time, is I'm going to talk about, basically three things. I'm going to talk about how they can be an emotional trigger, how you can prevent things from coming up last minute, and talking about what you can do if you are already divorced and have something in front of the courts. There are ways that you can do, that you have options in order to get something more detailed in place. So like I said before, holidays can be kind of an emotional time when you're trying to split time with your kids and your co-parent. It's very important to remember and keep in the forefront of your mind that the children are the only thing that really matter in this scenario. Yes, you might love Christmas. If you, let's say, for example, when I was a child of divorce, I was 7 years old, and my parents lived in different states. So we did Christmas as best as we could, where we split time in Oklahoma. My dad's family lived in Oklahoma, even though he lived in Missouri. You just got to kind of figure those out, because the higher the stress level, the more that your child actually feels it, and they don't feel that love and that comfort and that safeness during those holiday times, during Thanksgiving, Easter, whatever it might be. So big ways, let's talk about number 2, to avoid these emotional problems and these spikes in stress and these, problems that can happen where your children don't feel like they're, comfortable in the place that they're in, is prevention. So number 1 thing is prevention. So if you already had to have something in place, then we'll talk about that next. But if you're going through the process of divorcing or going through the process of separation, or you're thinking about it, this is where you want to kind of pay attention, because your best bet is to prevent and think about all possibilities of what could go wrong and how you'd want to do things, so that can be in place. And you can be flexible if you want to, but make sure everything is in place on the front end so that you avoid those issues and those last minute problems on the back end. So when you're working on a parenting plan, so a parenting plan is very important if you're going to file for divorce, if you're going to get a divorce, if you are just trying to, even if you're establishing paternity and want some shared custody or visitation, parenting plan, that phrase is a key phrase when you're talking about working with the courts. A parenting plan can be, everything can be done outside of the courts. A judge just approves it. And as long as it sounds rational and reasonable and both parents agree, then you're good to go. But detail, detail, detail. So when you're working with your attorney on your co-parenting plan, these are some things that you may want to think about. Number one is, what holidays are you going to include in the visitation and the custody for the parenting plan? Not everybody adheres to the same holidays. It depends on what your religion is, what your culture is, whether or not you care about Easter, whether or not you care about Halloween, for example. Halloween can be the biggest holiday for some people, but it's not for everyone. So what holidays do you want to include in your parenting plan? For those specific holidays, you need to know what days each of the parent has the kids. If they're, if it's a long break, like a Christmas break or a Thanksgiving break, do you split that in half? Do you alternate years? You have all sorts of different options there. And again, just because it's in writing doesn't mean that you can't be flexible between the adults, but have it in writing so that if somebody's feelings get hurt or somebody wants to change it and you don't want to change, you have that kind of plan in place that the judge has approved, so you don't have to deal with kind of the drama on the back end of it. So what holidays do you want to include? What days out of that holiday are the parents, or each parent, going to have custody of the children? I want it to be even as detailed as what time. Let's say that you're splitting Christmas break and one parent gets the kids for 5 days, one parent gets the kids for the other 5 days. What time are you going to exchange the custody of the children? Is it going to be at 6 p.m.? Is it going to be at 9 a.m.? Where are you going to exchange? Is it going to be at the mom's house, the dad's house, a mutual meeting place like a McDonald's or a Walmart parking lot or something like that? Those are all super important. And then kind of like I mentioned before, it's common to alternate the years. For you get Christmas in 2019, I get Christmas in 2020. And you'll do even and odd years when it comes to alternating that. So that's an option for people. If you would prefer to share, then that's something that you can work out as well. So that, like I said earlier, 5 days for Christmas break, one parent, 5 days for Christmas break, the next parent. Obviously, a lot of this depends on the geography of where the parents live. So that's kind of important. I mentioned that my parents lived in different states. So the logistics of that was a little bit more complicated, but as long as you both are on the same page and you can work it out, it's doable. And I never felt like my parents were fighting over Christmas. I just knew that this is kind of what we did and never knew what went on in the background, which is awesome. I've done it in the past. My opinion is not necessarily the best thing, but done it in the past where you split, like Christmas Day, for example, where you get, one parent has the kids up until like maybe 1 or 2 p.m. and then the other parent has them for the Christmas Day evening. All these things are options, and you just need to talk about that with your significant other or ex-significant other, your co-parent. Talk those things out. And if you need a mediator involved, if you need an attorney involved to help you kind of facilitate and have that conversation with the other parent, if you think they're being unreasonable, then there are options out there for you, because we have parenting kind of consultants and coaches. We have mediators. We have all sorts of things that we can help you find those alternative ways in order to have that conversation with your co-parent, as opposed to you guys just sitting down and screaming at each other. Best thing, again, best interest of your children is for you guys to come to an agreement. That kind of takes me into number 3, which is, if you don't have this detailed co-parenting plan in place, parenting plan in place, then you have options now. The biggest option, and to me it's the most legal and the most solid option, is to modify whatever divorce decree that you have to include a more detailed parenting plan. If you're not in a divorce situation with your co-parent, so you can still have a judge sign off on a co-parenting plan. It doesn't have to be through a divorce. So modification with that parenting plan, having a judge sign off on it, I know it costs a little bit of money, but it's totally worth it. If your child is 5 now, 2 now, 10 now, you still have until they're 18 to worry about how holidays are going to go. So why not have something in place so that you know exactly what it's going to be like for the next, 16 years. And again, you guys can be flexible if something comes up, if somebody's got a trip, whatever it might be, you can be flexible with each other. So that's one of the options if you aren't currently going through a divorce or thinking about a divorce, to do it on the front end, is to do some kind of modification or have a judge sign off on that parenting plan so that the courts and everybody know this is how it's supposed to go. So if something comes up, somebody says that you're doing it wrong, you can go and refer back to that document. And I don't like to look at worst case scenario, but as some of you know, I used to be a domestic violence attorney, and worst case scenario happens sometimes. So if cops are involved or anything like that, again, you have that judge's signature on that particular visitation and custody document. And so you can say, look, here it is. She can't take them at this time or whatever it might be. Always remember the best thing is to work with your co-parent. I know that's difficult when emotions are involved, whether there's cheating or whether, whatever it might be, where there's a problem. It's always best to work with the co-parent on figuring these things out, because your other option is to have a judge just tell you what to do. And judges don't actually care about your emotions and that Christmas is your favorite holiday or that Halloween is your favorite holiday, whatever it might be. They don't care. They just care about what's in the best interest of the child and what's fair in their minds for equitable, having equal time with the child, depending on, the circumstances for how each parent is able to take care of the children. So as much as you can, work with your co-parent. Be flexible on the schedule, but it's good to have it in place with a judge's signature so you don't have that confusion and that possibility of blow-ups or anything like that in the future. Last thing I'm going to say is remember, all of this is for the best interest of your child. That's the phrase that you'll hear a lot in legal terms, because that is the only thing the judge cares about. You should be caring about that too. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying that some people let their own emotions kind of cloud their judgment. Just because somebody committed adultery doesn't mean that they're not a good parent. Keep that in mind. So work with your co-parent, work on what's the best interest of the child. If you don't already have visitation kind of laid out for Halloween that's coming up, trick-or-treating, and especially with young kids, it's just super cute. And older kids like Brooke love so much the trick-or-treating aspect of things. And it's just kind of one of those things that you've got to be mindful of and put your kids first. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to be actually out of town next week at a legal conference. And so we'll be missing our Tuesday on the 23rd, but we'll be back on the 29th at 11:30. for our next Legal Talk Tuesday. And I hope that you guys survive this lovely day that we have outside and that you have a fabulous rest of your week. Thanks so much.